They say that money can't buy happiness, which is a perplexing concept for us. With what little we had 4 years ago, we were able to buy our floating home and have been grinning ever since. A steel, sloop-rigged Adams 35. It's not the white picket fence dream, but it does come with ocean views and a boundless backyard. Of course, happiness isn't handed to you with a proof of ownership paper. This life has thrown us challenges we'd never have faced if we'd stayed cosy on land. But steel is real, and that's why we chose it. We weren't naive. We knew rust would be a constant issue to keep on top of, so treating any rust from the inside out was the first job we spent our time on. 2 weeks of playing the floor as lava while we grinded, treated and repainted over the steel. But rust isn't our problem right now. Last episode we hauled Innerbloom out, and for the second year in a row the blistering on our paint was undeniably disappointing. Fortunately for us now, we're out of the trawler harbour and we've been cruising full time. Therefore, we can rule out environmental aggressors like shore power and stray current from other vessels. So we can safely say that something else is afoot. Here's what we know about blistering. Yep, not much at all. As we approach all repairs on Innerbloom with a do it once, do it properly attitude, so do we apply the same ethos to our haul-outs, which is why working in persistent rain on a time limit is straining on our conscience. How we like to learn is by drinking from the fountain of knowledge, tapping into the sailing community and learning from those more experienced. After exposing the blisters, we reached out to the Metal Boat Society forum to seek some answers. Being connected to shore power without an isolation transformer, a non-isolated alternator, these are definitely things to consider. Poor prep work, fair enough, but we feel like we were as diligent as novice sailors could be with our first anti-foul job. And with Josh's history as a tradesman in electrical and instrumentation, his meticulous approach to efficiency in his work also extends to how he cares for his ship. Ideally, on our last haul out, we would have and should have had the entire hull sandblasted back to bare steel, as per the recommendation every 5 to 10 years. But for us to have sandblasted at our last haul out, we'd have to pull the mast down, go into a shed, and all of this would have been about 5 to 10k, which is about a third of the price of what we paid for the boat. And because we're living off our savings, this would mean foregoing the cruising season ahead because we simply wouldn't afford it. Another cause of the blistering could be a poor connection on our zinc anodes. So last episode we eliminated this by welding new studs on, then recalculating our zinc quantity to make sure we aren't overprotecting or underprotecting. We're fortunate enough to have space on Innerbloom for books. Not lucky enough to afford the space to keep every old edition of Alan Lucas that we come across. But we're glad to have this book by John Payne, where we can refer to this formula to calculate our zinc size off. We've also learned that we could have a stray electrical current, which we now know how to test for thanks to this handbook. So Josh, do we? Okay, we're going to have to fix that later. So where does that leave us today? We've got rain forecast for the next 4 days with even less time remaining on the slip. And the ideal outcome for us moving forward would be to get Innerbloom sandblasted.
A really bad position to be in on a Saturday because no one's working for the next 2 days and we're still paying to be out on the hard. So we're pretty much at a standstill with hull work as it is.
Which takes the most work, which sucks. But the majority of the comments that we got did conclude that sandblasting was the best thing, that people had the same experiences on their steel boats and that they just stripped off everything and started from scratch.
Regardless though, the conditions are not congruent for sandblasting. We need warm, dry conditions to safely expose bare steel. So while we wait for a call, let's get straight into day 2. Time is money and we have very little of either.
That's the reality of the situation. So it's
like, do we start the anti-foul process now?
Start moving forward on what we're doing.
But at least we can still find the fun amongst the flutter.
Alright, so we're ready to cut into this piece of wood to fit the freezer.
Where's the renovator?
It's in the car.
Well, scissor paper rock. Whoever loses
has to get it. Wait, no, whoever loses doesn't have to get it. Okay, scissors paper rock. Wait, out of 3, best out of 3. Best out of 3. This is the decider. Yay! It takes a little while to work out when we switch it around like that. Okay, far out. No, not yet. Keep going. You probably go 60 mil. Keep going forward. What's it catching on? Ow! Nice. We're in a little bit of a limbo at the moment because we're just trying to work out what the heck we're going to do with the hull, with the work that needs to be done on the hull, I mean. And we're just trying to get some information about wet blasting and if that's something that's going to be available to us, because it's obviously, as we said earlier, that it's Saturday, so we've got 2 days here. I mean, we do have quite a lot of work to do in the boat that we can kind of pass the time, but ideally that's the work that we can be doing while the anti-foul is drying, so that sucks. So we're probably going to be in the boatyard for like an extra 2 days, 3 or 4 probably. Okay, so we've decided that rather than just waiting around to find out about the water blasting, we're just going to get going with the through-hole fittings at least. So we've just, Josh taped them yesterday before we left because it was all exposed steel. So we've just gone around with 60 grit and removed all the surface rust and stuff and feathered all the paint. And I'm gonna have a go at the Torco
rotating blaster.
Yeah, is that the tungsten carbide one?
Yeah.
This is the one that we didn't have last year that we recommended. Or that someone recommended to us that we said we'll use this year, so we'll see how it goes.
So what Phoebe's going to be doing is we've got rust all around here and this edge needs to be tapered anyway for us to paint, so she's just going to include those bits so we can just rust treat them, and then we'll go over this with a sander and feather it. But she's already cleaned all this steel up to be nice and bright. Bloody good work. When we hauled Innerbloom out for the first time and found so much blistering and bare steel, I spent 3 solid days swinging off a grinder. I honestly believe I could have halved my work time with what I know now. However, at the time, this was all I knew. As you know, in the yachting community, we look after each other. So naturally, it wasn't long before a fellow Steely yachtsman said to me, "Mate, you gotta get one of these. It's an essential tool to have in your box." And so I met the Turku rotating blaster. Mate, we aren't getting paid to say this, but I just wouldn't forgive myself if I didn't pass on the favour to you and give this product the raps it deserves. If I can help others save valuable time like I have, then I'm stoked. I bought one of these tools to try, and after a short but meaningful fling, we developed a lifelong partnership. And it's safe to say, we're big fans. These units are unbeatable for stripping, and the best part is, there is no metal loss. Whereas a grinder, it takes steel thickness off every use. I no longer have to protect surrounding work areas from the effects of hot metal shards, which set into position and rust themselves. These things work using a rubberized disc, which forces tungsten carbide tips against a hard surface, stripping surface contaminants. For us, fighting the ever-enduring battle of rust, I would not go to war again without my Turku.
What do you reckon should I do along this charm here?
It's just that needs to be fixed up. Yeah. Just see all those, you got to pretty much not feel the transition.
Yeah. This is actually the first time that I've seen the actual width or the thickness of the boat. Pretty gnarly to think my whole life is in the hands of this.
Good morning, day 3. Looking awful similar to every other day here. It's overcast, there's rain forecast, but there's no rain, but it's moist. So look, I can't keep waiting. I'm just gonna get on with hull work this morning. I'm gonna be starting to sand, do a section, so I'll do along the chime, fore and aft on a plate. I'll just straight away prime that section, and then I'll move on to the next section, sand that, prime it. That way that if we do get a bit of rain, at least the surface will be prepped and the hull won't be sucking in any more moisture once it's been sort of sanded and ready to be primed. Phoebe's doing a little bit of shopping this morning. She's gone to the farmer's market markets. We go to the farmers markets as much as possible so we can get nice, beautiful, fresh produce, because what you fuel your engine with is how you're gonna run. So yeah, that's something we do, and we don't like to change that up too much because it works for us. So I have got a bit of a concern about this work area, and that's that I'm working over the top of all these beams. It's actually extremely dangerous because as you're looking up at your work surface, you want to be moving your feet around, and it's just an absolute recipe for disaster. There's a major hazard there. So I'm going to try and find some more of these beams and just put that up around my work area here so I can safely and confidently work on that without injuring myself, because we don't want any injuries. We got our cruising season coming up, and this is the last of the hard work. Well, actually not really, it's the first of the hard work before we get going, but got a few beams here that I'm gonna chuck up along there. Well, we've got our 240 volt lead set up. Just gonna get our orbital sander ready, chuck some sandpaper in there, get some PPE on and get going. About to get my sand on to scrape the whole rudder and skeg, but I have been noticing that as I've been scraping whole sections off, there's been wet steel below it, so it kind of just reaffirms that this steel is just has too many old layers of paint on it. Like you can see all the old anti-foul layers here, and that wasn't steel that I exposed last year because there's no sort of my fresh primer in there, but it's just moist. Like, it's all wet. Anyway, just got to continue with what we're working with and get it all ready. Why are we working in little sections like this, Phoebe?
Oh, because of the... Are you recording? I was like, you know. Because it's raining. So we've just sanded like this first half from like 3/4. And it's kind of raining on and off, so rather than leaving all that steel exposed and making it susceptible to rust, we thought we'd just work in little sections to at least get it covered, and then we'll just sand in the time that it's not raining, and try and slap some paint on there. Yeah, but it's making it really difficult. What?
No, you're right.
What?
How quickly does this primer dry?
Pretty quickly, actually. The keel's already dry, and we did that maybe half an hour ago, so yeah, I think it should be okay. It just sucks. It's just the worst possible job to be doing in weather like this when there's so much humidity in the atmosphere. And we're working on a steel boat, but anyways, we're making the most of it.
God, you look so gnarly. Hoping to get the through hulls on today as well. We'll go through that when we're going to do it, but so far it's looking pretty good. Phoebe's doing a great job, and it's nice to start see some silver on the boat.
And PPE.
She's wearing shoes. Sorry to all the crew that
last year.
yeah, that was from the
pickle paste.
The pickle paste, yeah. Sorry to all the crew who love feet, because this is not a foot friendly episode. Yeah.
The rain is on and off, but we've managed to paint just that upper chime, and we're just gonna try and see what this rain's doing, because if it's gonna keep raining then we shouldn't sand anymore, which means we'll probably get stuck into the through-hole fittings or maybe the water tank. Josh got a little bit of the base coat in his eyeball. It's starting to grow legs, but I'm sure he'll be fine.
Yeah. I don't know if we showed you yet, but these are our new studs that Jai finished welding on. Phoebe's done all beautiful and primer, 2-pack epoxy primer on that, and she did a wet on wet technique on that, so just kept like going around all the spots on the hull and just overcoating when it's wet. And I've hit this with acetone and nothing is coming off, so it's actually even better than a lot of the work that I've done in the past with that 2-pack epoxy.
But in the past you did a coat, left it for 6 hours, did another coat.
Oh, 12 I think is the recommended time. But
right.
Yeah, that's how I did my overcoat, so that's a way better way to do it.
And we didn't even mean to do the wet on wet technique. We just had too much primer mixed up, so I was like, oh, may as well just put it on there. But it said on the tin that you could do that, so yeah.
I don't know, what do you reckon? Should we just do this side?
Yeah, it has been raining a little bit.
Stops now.
It's just, that's because you're standing under the boat, babe.
Yeah, that's
it's
what
raining.
I mean.
But the thing is, it is going to run down the sides of the boat, so it's really hard to know what to do.
Let's just do it. The rain has well and truly set in. We can't do any more hull work in these conditions, so what are you going to do?
Let's go home and watch a movie, I think.
Yeah, I've heard there's a really good movie channel called New Kids on the Dock.
Gonna go home and make a movie. We pretty much at the stage where I'm editing the same week that we're releasing them, so it's currently Sunday and we release every Thursday, so I got to get started on the next one.
The ultimate chase.
Yeah, and I'll also prepare some meals because we just had a pretty basic lunch today, so I'll make a shepherd's pie so that we've got some meals for the next day once it stops raining.
Yum.
So we can just keep working. Yeah.
I'm gonna stay here and probably put some of these through hull fittings on, just so they've got a chance to go off and cure over the next sort of little while, because we're using a bit of sealant on them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll just keep chipping away at that, and yeah, good luck with your little jobs.
But it sucks because we just sanded the starboard side on the first or the second chime and could only paint half of it really, because there's just these long streamlines of water coming down, so not ideal, but that's okay. We're just working with it. Yeah.
Lucky we'll be sandblasting again next year.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay. Good luck to you.
Love you.
See ya.